Hello, everybody. This is Sage Rosenfels with the Iowa Everywhere Network and the Sage Rosenfels Experience podcast. Today, I have on a great guest, Zach Johnson, longtime PGA Tour member, Masters champion. He's on the show. We had a great time. We talked about growing up in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, playing multiple sports, his favorite golf courses in the world, all sorts of things, just being a competitor. Both of us growing up in the same part of the country, Eastern Iowa. So really wonderful podcast. It is sponsored by Hinterland Music Festival, August 4th through August 6th in St. Charles, Iowa. Bon Iver, Maggie Rogers, and Zach Bryan. Should be a great festival. Thank you for sponsoring the show. Have a great listen.
From the Channel Seed Studios, this is the Sage Rosenfels Experience, exclusively on Iowa Everywhere.
Channel Seed. Seedsmanship at work.
Mr. Zach Johnson, Sage Rosenfels here. Good to see you. You're in North Carolina. I'm in Omaha, Nebraska. Really excited to have you on the show today to talk about all things golf, all things Iowa. May talk about the Hawkeyes some, unfortunately. May talk about the Cyclones for all I know. How are you doing?
Sage, I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate you reaching out. It's good to hear your voice again. It's been a while. But yeah, I mean, I may be in North Carolina. I do live in Georgia, but as we all well know, I am from Iowa, and I love that.
Very much now. Do you remember the last time that you saw me?
We ran into no, I don't. I'm gonna count it up, but it'd be false.
So we're one of those situations where I remember.
You played in my event one year.
I played in your event, but actually the last time it was, Father's Day weekend is always the U.S. Open, and so a lot of times I take my kids somewhere, fun for, and it was the U.S. Open, Pebble Beach. We're sitting in the 18 bleachers, and you're finishing up.
Okay.
And then afterwards, I walked sort of around back of those bleachers, and you were signing some autographs or doing some things. And I said hello.
You had your kids.
Yes, had the kids. And so, that was the last time. Pebble Beach, not bad. I have gotten to play Pebble Beach a couple times.
Pebble Beach is amazing.
Most recently, if you call morning of, if you're in the area of Pebble Beach, they may have some like late in the day tee times. And I had a 3:15 tee time, which means they don't guarantee you're going to get done by dark. And we were not. We were on 17. It was dark, and just hit balls straight into the ocean, basically. But we'll see where it is when we're up there in the dark. But 18, we're waiting for people. And they have lights on the 18 green and the 18 fairway. So if you get it out there, you might be able to sort of play in.
Yeah.
And this group behind us comes up with these glow in the dark balls. Red, blue, green, and they're like, "Hey, you can have some too." So we just like 7 of us played together, finishing up 18. Little different ball didn't carry. My drives maybe went 220, but still you got to play up 18. So
right. Oh yeah.
My last time seeing you and playing Pebble Beach were, of course, very very different situations. You are coming off a weekend, didn't play great. Where are you in sort of your I don't know a big picture, your career, where you are this year, how you're feeling about, when you asked me how I was doing at 32, 33, 34 when I was playing football, like I knew I was at this spot where I wasn't as athletic. I wasn't when I was 26 years old. Yeah. And you have like life thoughts, right? Yeah. Where are you in your career and how you feel about your golf game?
Well, that's a question that seems to be surfacing a lot more often. I'm 47, and in golf years in general, that's not that old, but as a profession, it's not young. I'll just say that. So, on the surface, if I'm being fully candid with this, mentally, I am right where I was 20 years ago. I mean, as far as my desires, my motivations, my willingness to work, and I would say, those are all the positives, right? I would also say that everything else is still right there. My frustrations, and all the just complete. I mean, I hate missing cuts. So right now, my mind is so fresh. I'm so about right now. I still feel like I can compete. I still feel like there's a lot of really good golf in front of me. and I have a lot of reasons for that. I mean, I work hard. I still see it when I'm whether I'm just practicing or playing. Sometimes I see it in competition. Sometimes I see it, just at home and just doing stuff around the course. So, my team is still extremely encouraging and challenging. So I know that I can still compete with these young guys week in, week out. I'm just not playing quite, everything's not meshing together. I've kind of reconstructed some things internally with my golf bag. I've reconstructed some things as far as my practice. And that takes time. I mean, it's one thing to introduce, it's one thing to, um, you know, make a change or a nuance, but it's another to actually see it come to surface. So, um, last week I'm fresh on this cut. I missed it by one shot, and I putted awful. There's 120 guys in the field, and I think I finished, oh gosh, 114th in putting. So I hit it fine, but I putted terrible. So that's kind of be my emphasis the next 2 weeks. I got 2 weeks off. I declined to try to qualify for the U.S. Open, which is a good decision, a healthy decision, the right decision, but one that's going to take some time to come to terms with once that U.S. Open comes on TV. Just because I want to play in a major championship, and that's why you work. But 2 weeks off, it's good. It's good for me at home. It's good for me for my future. I'm going to play 3 weeks in a row, starting with Hartford, and then ending Hartford, Detroit, and then John Deere, which is just east of you. So I'm encouraged. I mean, I'm excited. I actually played yesterday with some buddies. I mean, it doesn't really, it's not the same. It's not the same. But there's something to be said about hitting the middle of the face. There's something to be said about making putts. I didn't putt great, but I made a few, and it's just work. I mean, I don't know anything when things are not great. I don't know anything other than put in the work. And I mean, you got to diagnose it. You got to kind of slice it in half here and there, but it really just comes back to going to the basics. I'm really going off on a tangent with your question here, but
no. Listen, you have
yeah.
a lot. Listen, I know where you are. That question is not an easy one to answer because there's so much that goes into the thought process of we're in midlife in a sense. What's interesting about golf is that players are playing on the tour well into their 50s, sometimes 60s. You'll see occasional like 60-year-old in the top 10 and like a Masters sometimes. And it's like, right. Like, so you can have many, many years left.
That's right.
We all know that unlike football, that's just straight gonna end.
Yeah.
But again, Tom Brady's, played till he was 45, right? So
he's
there is a lengthening process physically with health and nutrition and being mentally in the right place for a long time and not getting worn down and just sort of being consistent. But there are physical changes that happen to all of us when you hit your 40s. I very much felt that in the last 4 or 5 years. Things break down a little bit. Your hips bother you a little bit. You might walk a little funny one day, right? Like, hi, I got to do this groin stretch for like 40 minutes, and it just, what's the problem? 20 years ago, that thing snaps back into place in 24 hours.
No question.
That to me is the challenge. So it feels like your mind space is right where you want it to be. Your practice habits are where you want it to be. You feel like you have a pretty balanced home life where you're not going to lose your mind because you're missing the U.S. Open and you're just going to like, I'm going to be home with my family and spend some weeks sort of readjusting. That seems to be a really good mental space. But there are undoubtedly physical things that occur that make it more harder and harder to keep this thing on the train tracks. And that's just a fact. It happens to everyone. Jordan did not lose his motivation at the end. He didn't lose his work ethic. His knees went, his ankles went. Gained a few pounds, right? One little thing goes off, you can't jump as high. And the razor sharp thinness of being with the best and being with a whole other group of people isn't that far on that tour. There's many good golfers all around the world. You've done it for a long, long time. it's really a credit to your consistency, to your work ethic, which
appreciate
is very much, I feel like, the strength of a lot of Iowa athletes that I've met over the years, whether
Yeah.
they grew up in Iowa or sometimes even just played at Iowa or Iowa State.
Mhm.
You know, Chad Greenways from the Dakotas goes to Iowa.
Yep.
He had that sort of consistent, grounded, do the
Mhm.
work mentality, and he ended up having a long career. And I feel like most Iowa people that I was with when I
Mhm.
played
Mhm.
had this similar thing about
Mhm.
us
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
I don't know, but I think obviously you have
Thank
it.
you.
You can have it for a very long career, and I think it's going to help you have a long career. Let's talk about it real quick. You're not a long ball hitter,
Nope.
right? You when you won the Masters, you were, I believe, you like birdied every par five by never going for it. Is that right? Something like that, or
Well,
not? You didn't bird every
yeah.
one, but you
Yeah.
played every one as a true par five,
Yep.
laid up 89 yards out,
Yep.
and you're hitting sticks and then making 10-foot putts. It
Yeah.
seemed like to me.
Th- yes, there's some truth in that. Yes.
Yeah. So talking about one not being a long hitter your whole
Sure.
career, but now again, as your body gets older, and but also technology gets a little bit better every single
Yeah.
year to sort of
Yeah.
make up for your age. Talking about just being on the tour and not being one of those guys who bombs away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Number one, I haven't gotten a whole lot longer, but I haven't gotten any shorter yet. Thank God. I mean, that's kind of the thing where you're like, how many head covers am I pulling off here going into some of these holes, right? And I'm not there yet. I've still got some speed. If anything, it's kind of gone up over the last year or two. But that's just stuff. I mean, going back to what you said, it's if there's one thing I probably do take for granted is how I've prevented injury and how I've made longevity a priority. Now I do. I mean, it's not like I just do. I'm in the gym every day. I'm doing something every day. I've got individuals that, are prodding and pushing and, cupping and needling and all that good stuff on me constantly because at 47, I can't do without it. I don't practice as much as I once did. I still have like you said, the mentality and the desire to do it, but I can't go out 5 straight days from 8 to 5, or whatever it may be, and just hit balls all day, chip all day, and I can't do it. So, I'm using therapies. I'm using all of that just to maintain and or somehow find some sort of edge or maybe incrementally get a little bit better. I mean, and I love that. I mean, that's why I have a team. I just had an MRI on my hip, just like you mentioned, and it's not the first one on that hip, but the consensus is the radiology is I'm 47 and I play golf. I mean, that's it. I mean, it's not,
That's what my orthopedic said to me too.
yeah,
He's like, "You're 45 and used to play football. You got some things in there." It's like, "Oh, great!" It's like automatic. Even like
yep,
I don't remember a hit. There wasn't some play where I remember I couldn't get up because no, my hit it's just 20 years of doing that sport.
that's exactly right. And
Yeah.
we're talking, you're getting hit by 225 to 350 pound people. I'm still just hitting a little stationary
Sure,
ball.
but repetition of anything,
Anything.
repetition of anything.
That's right.
Somebody that works in a
That's right.
factory that is doing the same hand
Correct.
movements all day long gets carpal tunnel,
That's right.
and your repetitive movement of doing the same thing over and over, millions and millions and millions of times,
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
and this is my next question, because you are addicted. There is not a golfer in the world that's any good
Yeah.
that's not addicted,
Yeah.
because there's something sweet in baseball. It's a little addicting too. In basketball, I feel like it's the shot.
Oh yeah.
But in golf, when you're young, and I don't know when you started, but it's
Mhm.
when you're young and you get a bucket of balls and
Yep.
you hit just one really good, and you're like, wow, that thing just jumped off the club and felt so good and did exactly what I wanted to do. And then you try to repeat that,
That's
right,
right.
for 35 years now, or I don't know, when did you start playing golf, and when did you knew you were sort of addicted to it, that just that sensation of hitting a pure shot?
Sure. I will preface by saying my addiction is competition. Um, I am fully enamored by the game of golf, but it doesn't matter what it is, if that makes sense. I mean, it could be a ball with a paddle or a racket or a hoop. It just doesn't matter. It's in my fiber. I
Mm.
gotta have it. So that's my addiction. golf for me was one. I was a young teenager when it really grabbed me, but I started playing, probably 9 or 10. I was playing a bunch of soccer then, basketball then, all that good stuff. Growing up in Iowa, all your sports are seasonal anyway, right?
Yeah.
And another thing I probably take for granted because I think that's extremely healthy. Uh,
Oh, we'll get to that next question.
sure, sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the attraction and the kind of going off what you're saying, those really solid shots or consistently solid shots for a day or two. It grabbed me at 12, 13, 14 is when it really started to I get the itch. I'd play pretty much. I guess you can sometimes play, early April, but it's usually what, May, June, July, August through September, ideally October, but you're talking 5, 6 months a year. And I play a lot, in between basketball camp or soccer or whatever it may be. I played a ton of golf, and there was moments there, where you have your value, like you still work at it, you go out there, you make a few 10-footers, or you slide in a birdie in the last hole. You're like, oh yeah, I'm back, and then I go back out the next day and do it again. And that was when the addiction really started to settle in. I get off work. I worked at a golf club. I worked at Cedar Rapids Country Club, and I get off and I go straight over to Elmcrest and go hit balls till dark. That's when you're addicted, right? That's when you know that, hey, there's something here. That's probably not exactly normal, but
Yeah.
I loved it, and that's what I did every day. It was not a rough childhood. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. I had very much the same things growing up.
Mhm.
Maquoketa was a town of 6,000 people. I actually grew up in the Andrews School District, 350 in that whole town. I'm not sure if it even has that many people anymore. No high school.
Wow.
And I had two older brothers who grew up in the country, and we just played sport and we just followed the seasons. And we had a 12-inch black and white TV. So occasionally we got a Bears game in the fall or Wimbledon in the summertime or the US, the Masters, whatever it might be. Of course, the Hawkeyes for basketball, watching BJ Armstrong and Ed Horton and
My favorite.
That era.
Yep.
And we just played sports. We
Yeah.
just played sports, and it was so enjoyable and so pure. But it
Mhm.
was the addiction to. What my sophomore year in high school, I was the quarterback. I broke my arm mid-season, or my arm shoulder mid-season. So I'm sort of in this sling. So I'm still going to practice, but I'm in this sling, and I just got bored of watching the guys. So I went down and just started kicking field goals. Never kicked field goals before. 4 or 5 weeks later, last game of the year, they allow me to sort of go out there and kick field goals, and did that through. Just became an addict, right? And the first 3 were like, "What was that?" And then you hit one, you're like, "Whoa, that was nice." And now I'm in the backyard until dark, as you said,
In a sling.
just in a sling. Yeah, probably not the sling. It's like I was supposed to wear it. But kicking field goals between 2 trees my dad had planted that were, roughly what a field goal post would be in the backyard.
Sure.
That's what I did.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Dark. And, didn't end up being a kicker, but, I had one punt at Iowa State. But yeah, I just sort of got into this thing that I'd never done before because I was addicted to shooting a basketball with you're right. You have to shoot the basketball in the snow. It's wintertime.
100%.
You're home, you're shooting the basketball in the snow. You got the broom or you got the shovel, and you're wiping it off the court, and some people it's a driveway, and you're out there with gloves on shooting. We didn't have phones.
Right.
We didn't have phones. We didn't have 1,000 TV shows and this and that right. It was just be outside. It was either be outside or be inside.
That's right.
And it was like, I would rather be outside.
Me too. I remember when my hands, there was like this threshold you had to get to in the winter with football, but specifically shooting hoops. And once they got to this numbing stage where you could still move them, you're like, oh, this is it. I'm good to go. I don't feel it anymore. I could be out here for like 2 or 3 more hours. And then we go inside and play ping pong until we pass out. So
that's right.
That's all I did.
Tape on the basement too.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I think for me, what's interesting though is for me when I got done playing football, and I feel like the end of my career is pretty stressful. I started bouncing around a little bit at the end, and it wasn't a good time in my life. I got tired of it. I barely play any. I go out and play around a golf every once in a while. I don't keep score. I don't care all that much. I'd like to try to birdie and par every hole, but
Mhm.
I'm not. I'm just. I don't know if I lost that or I just, or if you and I go play horse in the driveway, believe me, I'm gonna try to win.
Yeah, 100%.
But I think I not if I lost that or it didn't seem as important to me. I was out of the competing business for the first time in my
Mhm.
life. You're still sort of in it, and
Mhm.
so my competition was like, what am I going to do with this money for the rest of my life that
Sure.
I made when I was playing? And like, how am
Sure.
I going to best strategize to increase that? And what am I going to do with it? That's, for my family, for me, for the common good, right?
Yeah.
Where am I donate some money?
Yeah.
The competition becomes different. And then what my children, what
Mhm.
am I doing with them to try to
Mhm.
like maximize their capabilities
Right.
and their
Right.
possibilities and
Yeah.
experiences and things. So it's a different game, but you're still playing. So
Yeah.
you're sort of balancing both at the same
Yeah.
time.
I mean, there's always a balance, I think, in any profession, right? Between your work and what frankly should be your higher priorities. I mean, it's just chapters of life, I mean, it's seasons of life. And I don't play as much as I used to. It's not it's just not necessary. And again, I need to be at home more often when you have essentially two teenagers and one right behind them. So, and that's okay. I've come to terms with that, but I've also I'm in that you still should go work, I mean, and I love that. I mean, this year it's a little bit different. I'm wearing two different hats, one as a competitor and one as a well, quasi leader, even though we're not quite there yet. So I've got to pay attention on two different roles, two different jobs, but I can still do it. You said it. It's a balance, and I think I don't know what your experience is with your peers and maybe yourself personally, but I feel like the best athletes I'm around in my profession, and even some that I've gotten to know, somewhat well, and others, one of their maybe not the best, but one of their highest strengths, one of their distinct assets is compartmentalization. And if you can go compartmentalize all those things in your life, you can find that balance. You can find kind of a space where you can flourish in all avenues. Now, again, you got to have support,
Do
from the
you do
ground up.
you actually write that down? One of my old teammates described it as like the top of your 6 burner, your 4 burner
Mm,
cook, you're cooking or whatever,
sure,
stove.
sure,
You only have so many burners, right? You
right.
only have your family's this big burner.
Oh, I
You've
like
got
that.
these, and some bigger burners are bigger than others, right?
Hmm.
But you got your work, which is another. Those are 2 big ones for
Right,
you. All right.
right.
You do have, how much of a friend burner are you gonna like friends and going out and doing
Good point.
that?
Good point.
That is now
Yeah,
taken, right? And so you only have so much space. You have your
right.
charity work that you do.
Yeah,
You do need Zach Johnson time, right? Sometimes
100%.
with, everyone needs that sort of individual aspect of their lives, but it is an interesting balance and trying. And no, and everyone's is different. I
No
think that's the
question.
key is that
No
everyone
question.
is different and everyone does it, their own way.
And I don't think
Um,
it matters what industry you're in either. I mean, you just gotta, you gotta figure it out. I mean, we know professional sports, and we know that there's a toll that it takes mentally, physically, and emotionally. So yeah, you're right. I love that. The burners, man,
yeah,
I
it's
love it. I
pretty
wish it
good.
could be a Wi-Fi Traeger grill that you could just kind of let it go, but it's you got to pay
It's
attention.
not.
Unfortunately,
And everything's cooking at
that's
all
right.
times, right? Your kids are
That's right.
asleep now. It's still on low, like it's still cooking, right? So there's
Well
things that
said.
are always going on. Speaking of that compartmentalization, do you think playing multiple sports in high school helped you with that trait you have now? Because you did have to balance, of course, academics during the day, different sometimes 2 practices in the same night. Like
Yep.
you might play basketball and then go hit golf balls afterwards,
Right.
right? So
Right.
and then you might have homework. So how did
Yep.
do you think that compartmentalization of multi-sport helped you where you are now, just in life in general?
Absolutely no question whatsoever. I mean, the simplest yes to that question is I didn't get burnt out from one endeavor. I always had the dream of being a professional athlete. I mean, how realistic was that? I don't know. I mean, as a kid, it's the percentages. I am pretty practical. I think the data suggests it's not very high. So
who is your athlete that you wanted to be? Mine was Ryan Sandberg. I was like, oh, he's
that's a
sort
good
of
one.
a Rouser Cubs fan.
Yeah.
So, I feel like I
Yeah.
could look like him when I was older. He wasn't exceptional like athlete. He wasn't Michael Jordan. I
Right.
knew I wasn't going to be Michael
Right.
Jordan, but for me,
Right.
it was Ryan Sandberg.
Yeah. In other sports, my go-to, well, I was a huge Broncos fan, so Johnny Elway was way up there. Obviously MJ's MJ, but I was a huge BJ Armstrong fan. I went to the Iowa basketball camps, that sort of thing. Actually, I was just a really Dr. Tom Davis fan more than anything.
Yeah.
Do you
Do
know
you know how to do the bounce pass, the Dr. Tom bounce pass? Do you know
the
about
bounce
that?
pass to the post?
It's underutilized.
Mine might be a roll rather than a bounce, so probably not. But yeah, that was his, that and the pass off the backboard, right? Kind of his.
No, it was the pass into AC Earl when
Really?
the other team would score. For some reason, they would leave their center there.
Yeah.
They'd pass into AC Earl, who would then pass it to the point guard and then be the trailer in
right.
in the offense. That I
Unbelievable.
remember that for years. Unbelievable.
yeah.
Like pass into your center and then he's got to run the length of the court. That was
That's right.
that was the
It was
Tom Davis.
predictable in some respects, but it was also efficient. So
You knew what you're going to get. You're going to get, it was going to be 21-9 in the second
right.
round NCAA tournament. Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah. So I mean, those guys, Kurt Warner was as a young kid was huge to me, just because I mean, we went to the same high school.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
Was he sort of like your idol when you were growing up a little
well,
bit? Like
5 doors down was his point guard and his starting receiver named Tom Pecci. And Tom became a good friend, just because he was the same age as Kurt, and they were like essentially best friends growing up. So I loved hanging out with him and playing pickup ball, whatever it may be. He was a great athlete, and so those two in particular, I mean, you go into the Regis High School circles back then. I mean, Kurt Warner was known more as a basketball player than, I mean, he was a great quarterback, high school quarterback, and he'd say the same thing. He was an all-state at 6'3", 6'4", like power forward. Now that'd be a point guard, right? But yeah, so Kurt was way up there as a local Iowan, that kind of thing. Making it to play Division I sport. It was huge. So I mean, I'm just an Iowan through and through. I love just following Iowans. It doesn't matter where you went. Whether you're in state or left the state, it's still the way my mind operates. I'm going to follow that individual, as best I can. So, yeah, but BJ Armstrong was way up there, and I had, every sport had a different individual, like I was a Stefan Edberg tennis fan. Don't ask me.
Of course. Yeah. Okay.
Swedish guy, but I love the way he served and volleyed, I mean, that strange things like that. Right. So,
Edberg had the, by the way, do you play pickleball?
Addict.
Oh yeah. See, there you go. Another ad.
Yep.
We'll have to play pickleball sometime. That has become a great
hurts
sport.
So bad on my hips because I can't. Pardon my. I can't half-ass it. So I go way too hard, and it hurt. Like I need an ice plunge when I get done.
After pickleball. Yeah, it's become a great sport, obviously, sweeping across America. Do you think basketball, you said you sort of grew up watching Kurt Warner play basketball. He was a really good high school basketball player. I was a good high school basketball player. I was all-state, second team all-state 2 times. I see with a lot of quarterbacks, in particular receivers, basketball. Like I wouldn't draft a quarterback unless he was a good high school basketball player. Just wouldn't.
Yeah.
Do you think even in the world of golf, do you think from what you see out there, your fellow competitors, that many of them actually did play high school basketball as well in high school, or was baseball a sport that that a whole bunch of players played? What was the sport you think that what you've seen or they were really good when they were in high school?
I'll say this. I mean, being in some of the circles I've been in on tour, a lot of these guys are really good at basketball. Some of these guys now are freaks as far as, like Gary Woodland. I mean, he hits it hard. Obviously, he played college basketball for 1 or 2 years and then transferred to KU and finished out playing golf. So, I mean, that's that's not normal, right? When you're playing whatever little school's in Topeka, Kansas. I forget the name of the school. He was a basketball player there before he played college golf. So he's probably the anomaly. But I feel like everybody that, especially if you're from somewhere in the Midwest and you're a golf, you can shoot. It's just
You can shoot.
you can shoot. I mean, that's it's like riding a bike almost, where these kids can shoot. Recently, last week, Columbus, Ohio, there was about 6 or 7 kids that went to I don't know the Buckeye Stadium, doesn't matter, but their arena, and they went and did like a like a 3-point contest,
Yeah.
and it was impressive. The kid that lost in the playoff, who's become a good friend of mine, Denny McCarthy, he's a Virginia Cavalier, Wahoo. He filled it up like, was there 30 points you can score in a true NBA 3-point contest, and he scored like 22, 23, 9, whatever it may be. I mean, it was ridiculous. He missed like 4 or 5 shots and 25 shots, and again, that's pretty freaky, but it just seems like that. Dustin Johnson, he's 6'4", 200 pounds and can jump. I mean, his brother played college basketball. They're essentially the same person. So there's some truth in that. Now, there's also the other side of that, right, where you've got kids, especially the younger ones, that are coming up through the ranks through these academies and these teaching templates where they get up in the morning, they go putt, chip, they go to school for 3 or 4 hours, they come back and play golf all day. And I know that happens in other sports too. It's not how I would design it.
What happens now?
To each their own. I see being a factor. What's that?
It happens now. Like it's when we were growing up, especially if you were from a Midwestern town, the best athletes played 2, 3, even 4 sports.
100%.
My senior year, I went out for 5 sports. I did track and tennis in the spring because I was going to go play football. So I was like, oh, I need to learn how to run faster. So I went out for track too. That's just simply not possible. It's hard to play 2. And at 9, 10 years old, whether it's basketball or dance or whatever, it seems like kids get put into maybe 12. This is what you're going to pretty much do. This one. And do you think that the players are better skilled because of that? I've heard like basketball coaches say, or even a volleyball coach say, players today are better skilled than the players 20 years ago, but their competitive sort of spirit is different. Because they've only competed at one thing, and they haven't had this, like, there's different ways to win a tennis match. You can be down 0-4, 0-5 in the 3rd set and come back and win. You always could come back and win.
That's
right. In basketball, the time runs out, so there's just different ways to win. And that's, they see that difference as to maybe a negative to that sort of singular sport. Talking about that, people your age that are grew up playing other sports, and now you see some of these young guys who have just been, designed basically with a program to be pro golfers.
Yeah, I think. Well, you can look at it a number of different ways. I mean, the transition from amateur sports to professional sports just seems to be a little bit. It's not a staircase anymore. It's a couple steps in some respects. And some of the freaks, it's even less than that. They're probably few and far between, but there's freaks, and there's only so many JTs and Justin Thomases and those kind of kids. But these guys, before they get on tour, they're already playing. They're already approaching their work as a professional athlete, meaning they've got a team, they've got the ability to seek out the access to knowledge, the access to technology, the access to getting better quicker is there. And does that mean that they're better athletes innately? Not necessarily, because, I mean, we could sit here and talk about the freaks of any sport, in different eras, and they're still freaks. It doesn't matter when they were, living. So, I still think that Jack Nicklaus would have adapted to today's game and been a freak. There's no question in my mind. So now, and Jack played multiple sports. I think the ones that, from a longevity standpoint, from a consistency standpoint, that really shine are the ones that have great dexterity, great hand-eye coordination, great coordination, just in general. Those are the guys and gals that play multiple sports. There's something to be said about being able to put something into a hoop or catching something and retrieving it and throwing it sidearm versus, whatever it may be. And then also the same thing about being in an awkward lie out of the rough, with a ball that might jump and trying to land it here and let it trickle out to there. I mean, there's something to be said about those. Sometimes those are subtleties and sometimes those are absolutely substantial elements. And the more you're in those awkward, difficult, uncomfortable situations, regardless of the sport, I think it helps in the other sports. You see that in coaching now. Guys, certain coaches, whether it's an offensive line coach or maybe a quarterback's coach, they want kids that can play, have done multiple things, and been on multiple teams, meaning surrounded themselves around other people, led other people, or been led by other people. So I think all of that holds true. And I think, again, there's more than one way to do it. I just think the ones that are so one-track minded at age 12, I think the odds are against you more so. I'm not suggesting you can't, but it's going to be much more difficult.
Do you think there's an element of just exposure in general? So then it's like a metaphor in life. So it's not just sports, but it's just exposure in general enhances like the whole person, which then when you have that lie in the rough, you have instincts based off of that sort of exposure experience that the kid who has been raised on the driving range on a flat surface, now they are absolutely incredible. But in this shot, you're going to need some feel and instinct that somehow you got in baseball or something, right? And the wind, and there's a feel there that cannot be really quantified. But in your opinion, what is the difference between the best players and maybe guys who make it on tour but just don't have that instinct?
I think that's exactly right. I think it's kind of two E words, right? The exposure to those situations and then having to execute in those situations. I think that's huge. The guys and the gals that become household names and you're discussing are in those situations. They've been exposed to everything, whether they put themselves in practice in that or they've experienced it in life in other areas. They've got that exposure. Now they have to execute. And it's extremely uncomfortable. But those that are really good at it make those uncomfortable situations almost the opposite. It's like they flip a switch and they're able to dig deep and almost make that uncomfortable situation. It's like it's as if they have freedom in those situations to know exactly what to do and how to do it.
Do you think in golf, you get to choose when you get to hit, right? You can sort of think about it, overthink about it, right? In basketball, the ball comes, you got to shoot it. Like there's no wait. It's not gonna. I'm gonna wait here for a second until I feel better about the wind,
right?
And that ability to just, I'm gonna go do this and sort of have that confidence that's a different element that's in another sport where golf, maybe those kids who have as much time as they want to think about that shot. And they don't have the ability to be like, I'm just going to go hit it, because in the basketball, you just got to go for it.
Yeah.
Like that might be something that adds to the golf game.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, I've got a couple things, that I work with my team with, specifically my sports psychologist, Dr. Mo. And I would say one of the consistencies and way we approach each week, especially if I'm not feeling overly great about where my positions are or the overall contact, is just to stay athletic and be athletic in golf. I mean, you can analyze it a number of different ways. You collect all your data. You're trying to figure out what shot to hit based on the situation. You're eliminating. You're playing the hole backwards. You're trying to eliminate where not to go. So it's this kind of conservative approach. And you know what? There's a time where you got to throw all that out and just be an athlete, right?
Yeah.
And I think some of the best. I mean, I look at Brooks Koepka as of late. Oh my gosh, he's a great athlete. Number one, played high level baseball. And he just gets up there and hits it. Like we're all in the same conditions he's in. It just looks like he's extremely comfortable in a very, very uncomfortable situation.
Yeah.
As of late, I know there's been times where it's not like that for him as anybody, but man, those are the ones that I just think they're able to rise to the top and bring out their best in difficult times. Not to talk baseball and movies here, but a quote that my caddy keeps throwing at me, which is really good. When I'm kind of indecisive or I'm overanalyzing, and it's a Bull Durham quote. It's "Don't think, meat, just throw." Right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's something to be said about just getting, going to the free throw line and just not even thinking about it and just throwing it up. That's what you did.
Yeah.
It's still, the same amount of feet. It's still the same amount of feet, distance and height. Just don't think, meat, just throw it. You're still on the rubber. You're still throwing it to the same catcher. I'm still, gripping it with the same grip with a stationary ball. I mean, there's something to be said about just being an athlete and hitting a shot.
I think it's the ability to sort of find the zone.
Mm,
And I don't know about you, but I was sort of like the best basketball player in my class in
mm,
elementary school,
mm,
probably the best player in middle school, best player in high school in my
mm,
class.
mm,
And during all those years, when you're playing pickup games or whatever it is, it's going to come down to you generally. And sometimes you catch fire and you
mm,
get into the zone. And when you're
mm,
in the zone, when Michael Jordan played basketball, he wasn't thinking at all, basically. I mean, he was, but he was such in the zone of the world. Nobody else was even there. There was no stadium there. There was no crowd there. There was no, I feel like he was just relieved of all of that sort of stress and anxiety. Golf's a different game. Again, you have all that time. But if maybe you've played basketball before, you've been in the zone before, you just get in that zone and you just go for it. And you release all the what ifs or the questions or that bad thing could happen. You release it all. And that's probably when you are, man, I played great today.
Yeah.
And it's when you've released all that like anxiety and sort of overthought.
Yeah, that's freedom, right? I mean, just going out there knowing that the outcome is almost irrelevant, right? You're just, and it's that fine line between going through the motions and not really paying attention, and then actually just being 2 or 3 steps ahead. I read a quote, and I can't remember the athlete that said it, but the discussion always comes up, man, who's the best athlete? Who's the best player you've ever played with? Whatever it may be, right? And this individual, I think it might have been Scottie Pippen. It doesn't matter who it was. Said, the best athletes that he's witnessed are the ones that, how did he say it? He put it, the best athletes are the ones that they're ahead of the game. Oh crap! Now I lost my train of thought, Sage. I'm having a moment.
It's okay.
It's a good quote. Dadgummit. Best athletes. Oh, yeah, I got it. It's when everything is extremely slow, but you're playing very fast. Does that make sense? Or
Yeah.
in golf, that may not be, but there's a truth in that.
It's like clarity. There's a clarity and a
conscious clarity, right?
And you're present. You're 100% present. You have left the thoughts about like, hopefully I make this flight after this round so I catch my daughter's volleyball game. Right? You're very released present. Everything. You're present.
Yes.
I feel like
your feet are where you are, and that's the only thing that matters. That's the only thing you're focused on. I mean, yeah, there's something to be said about that. I mean, I think my best zone golf, periods, I'm thinking, I'm still going through my routines. I'm still practicing my techniques, off the course. I'm still doing all that. But when I get on there, it's just like, oh yeah, I'm comfortable. This is my domain. I mean, right where I'm at right now is the only thing that matters. The next shot, I'm conscious of it, but I'm not paying attention to it.
Have you ever watched the dart throwers and like, I don't know if it's England or whatever, but occasionally I feel like it's Sports Center top 10 or something. There's a dart throwing competition. Those guys, I feel like I've never seen women do it, but just those guys they are so relaxed. They just step up there and just go boom, boom, boom. And they have like released themselves from any anxiety. And they're just looking at their number or whatever. And they're just boom. There's just no, it's like they're just free. What you said, it is freedom. And that is sort of when it's being present in the spot. And all that matters is find a way to win or find a way to hit that shot or find a way to this putt's going to go in. It just is.
Right.
It just
and again, I don't know about you, but like, 15-foot slider, third down and long, whatever it may be, you're so into right where you are that everything else will take care of itself if I just worry about right now. I don't really know how it's going to get in the hole, but it's going to get in there, and obviously there's a lot of preparation that goes into that before you get there. I mean, whether it's visualization or, I mean, shoot, I even talk to myself, the night before, or even the morning
You're
of.
not the first golfer. You're not the first
Yeah,
golfer to talk to themselves. Just so you know.
there's a lot of demons in there sometimes. But anyway, there's something to be said about mentally preparing yourself for those moments of, hey, this is how I'm going to do it. This is what's going to happen. This is how I see it. And then when you get there, it's almost like you've been there before.
Let's finish up here. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Oh, I
You
love
have
it.
family time. You're from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. You've played. What is your favorite golf course in Iowa? But the second question is,
Mhm.
favorite golf course anywhere. You get one round to play. Give me your favorite golf course. Give me your favorite just golf hole, which doesn't have to be at that golf course.
Okay.
Could be anywhere. Yeah, one hole to play. And then, and then the last question is, when you're playing your favorite golf course, you're in a foursome. Who are the other three
Yeah.
people?
Yeah.
But they can't be pro golfers and they can't be family members. So we're
Okay.
talking like, who would be the three other people randomly in the world that would interest you to spend, 5 hours or 4 hours at your favorite course?
Okay. Okay. There's a lot of questions there.
Favorite
Well,
favorite Iowa golf course.
yeah.
Start there.
Well, I'm partial to, where it all started, and I mean, I guess the first two questions could be answered by the same golf course, but I'm not going to get that cliche. I mean, I love Elm Crest Country Club. That's where I started. That's where everything was hatched, right? And that's actually where most of, if not all of my support as a young pro came from. So I would, Elm Crest is, it's a part of Zach Johnson golf. Going to college in Des Moines, spoiled, I would say. I mean, for a good Midwest town like that, they're pretty loaded. I mean, we're very fortunate. Wakanda Club, which is where the Champions Tour played this past week, was way up there for me. I just felt like it was a majestic, Midwest hilly golf course. So I loved competing on that one too.
Yeah, I was going to say that's where you learn how to hit uphill and downhill and off the
And
sidelines.
blind shots, right?
Yeah.
And fast concrete like greens, it seemed like. So I just felt like it tested as a young amateur. Yeah, I felt like it tested everything I needed in my game. And I love all those. I mean, Glen Oaks is fantastic. Des Moines golf's amazing. I've heard the Harvester is the best. I think I played it maybe the first year or two it opened. I think it's been changed since then. So I'd love to get my feet on that place again. I heard it's magnificent and it's receiving accolades in that regard. So competition wise, I love True Links golf. Whether it's Scottish or Irish or whatever, British in general, it's one of those things that we just don't have it here. I think that's probably why my affinity to it's so high is just you just don't see it. We've tried to have it. We tried to manipulate it, but you can't. And most of the ones over there are really, really old.
Would Whistling Straits be your do you like Whistling Straits? No.
I don't dislike Whistling Straits. If you're looking at aerials, if you're looking at it just as a, through a big lens, it kind of looks like that. I mean, you got what looks like an ocean there, right? You got Lake Michigan there, and then you've got some cases sheep roaming the territory. So I can get that, but that's an aerial. It's a shot A to B. You're hitting it and it's stopping, and then you're hitting it again. You're not using the ground. You're not. It's
you're
good.
hitting islands.
You're
hitting islands all day.
Correct.
Basically.
Yeah. It's exactly. That's exactly. But it's not bad. It's just different. The best I've witnessed over here would probably be Shinnecock, which is on Long Island, way out there by the Hamptons. It's brutal, but it's fair. It just looks like there's a piece of land and then you just dropped a golf course on it, which I love. It's kind of a naturalist kind of look of golf. I think it's terrific. As far as in the United States goes, I do like Augusta, don't get me wrong. But that one's way up there for me. The ones across the pond are just so special, whether it's Muirfield or Troon or where are we playing? Northern Ireland. Man, that place was unbelievable. Shane Lowry won there. It doesn't matter. They're all good. Everybody's like, well, what's your favorite one over there? Well, that's like saying, what's your favorite pizza parlor in New York City? They're all good. I mean, it's just a matter of which one you like the best, right? They're fantastic and they're different and they're just special. So those type of golf courses stick out. Who am I going to play with? Gosh darn it!
Three people. Yeah, so they're not tour players or anything, or former tour players, and they can't be family members. Oh, I play with my dad. Of course, you play with your dad. Yes, right. So, sure. Sure. If you want to go back, hundreds of years.
Yeah. Man, I've been fortunate. I've played with a lot of the icons in my eyes that I've always dreamt of playing with. I've been able to play with, but man, who am I going to pick? That's hard, Sage. I mean, that really is difficult because I mean, if I have my last round, I'm going to pick those that I care most about, right? So
yeah,
and I know you're not asking that. I get that. Let me think of some individuals that I admire. You know who I've gotten to met, who I've never played with, and she's a member at Augusta National. I met her on 2 or 3 occasions, but I find her fascinating, and that's Condoleezza Rice.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up in rural Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Stanford professor. Obviously, I don't particularly care for politics at all, but she just like walks in a room and has a presence, and she's so kind and so humble that's very attractive to me. And I just feel like, man, I could hang out with you a little bit and just learn a lot. I would pick those that I can learn from. I just think she's extremely profound. So I'd throw her in there. If I'm going to go back to it, I mean, my priorities in life, I'd probably pick Paul. Paul wrote 16 epistles in the Bible, in the New Testament, and I think he's amazing. I mean, that's where I get a lot of my perspective on things. So I'd probably pick him. That's 2. I gotta pick another one.
That's a pretty good group so far. I'm really intrigued by this third one. It's going to really round it off.
It's going to be difficult. All right, I'm going to change it up. Yeah, I'm going to change it up substantially. I'm going to pick Will Ferrell. I don't think I need to explain that one.
I think that was actually the perfect pick because you need something, the other 2 fairly serious people.
That's right.
Fairly serious over there. And then now maybe one of the least.
That's right.
Or the Will Ferrell or Jack Black would be a good fourth. Would be great. I think that'd be a good fourth as
amazing. Well. You know, I liked because he loved golf, and I got to rub shoulders with him once. Was Jack Lemmon, the actor? I've heard stories about that guy. He'd be my alternate in case someone had to withdraw.
Well, I don't know if we could get Paul to make it, but Condoleezza and Will Ferrell, what's it called? Elmwood? What's
Elmcrest?
Elmcrest Country Club, Cedar Rapids.
Right.
Clear your schedules. Just need a day. Zach's looking for a round. Maybe he's looking for a different fourth. He can add in to really round the fourth, and maybe we could read some of Paul's teachings beforehand, and then you go out and play the round. So he's still sort of there.
I think that would be a day that is completely impossible, but amazing.
I don't know. Anything's possible.
Well,
we'll see where the Twitter sphere will take this one. So, well, good luck in the next couple of weeks, and as the summer progresses. Of course, getting over to near where I grew up, over in the Quad Cities for the John Deere Classic. Now far off, I think you're playing with Caitlin Clark, maybe in a program. Did I see that somewhere? That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Very cool.
She's so fun to watch.
Gosh.
Legendary Iowan, for sure. So,
do you think she knows I was like second team all intramural?
I think what you need to do is you need to talk to somebody, and like when Steph Curry plays golf and these things, like somebody brings a hoop and they get a couple.
Yeah.
I think you don't tell her, but I think like number 8 or something, you pull up and boom, you got some shots. And you play a quick game of pig or something.
I think I could hold my own if she shot left-handed, and I could shoot inside the paint.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Because golfers are good shooters. That was like a thing. My basketball coach used to get guys to try to play golf because he thought it would help their basketball shooting.
Yeah.
He thought there was something about golf.
I was shooting hoops just last weekend with some friends here, and it was raining, so we went into a gym and started shooting. I hadn't shot in a while, and we shot for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. We're playing knockout and around the world and horse and all these things. The next day, my arm hurt so bad. Right there, I'm like, oh my gosh, I am so old. So
Haven't done that in a
it'd
long
have to
time.
be
It's
pig and not
incredible.
horse, is my point.
Yeah, it might just be pie.
Yeah,
All right. Well,
fine, I'm fine
that's
with
it. That's it for today's show. I really appreciate you coming on, talking to a lot of Iowans out there. Enjoyed our show. Good luck. Good luck. In the next couple of weeks, and as the summer progresses, and and with all the, you got some big things going on. You got Ryder Cup action. Is that right?
That's right.
Um,
That's right. It's coming up.
that's gonna be a huge event. So I'll
Yeah.
look forward to seeing you on my giant flat screen and
There
not
you
my
go.
12-inch black and white.
Yes. Thank you, Sage. I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you reaching out.
All right. Thanks for coming on.